President, speakers, distinguished members of the Legislature, and fellow citizens of the state of New York. Let me say at the outset that I must, in the interest of time, omit reading some portions of this message, but I commend the attention of your honorable bodies to the full text. We meet again, opening this 185th session of the Legislature of the state of New York, to lead and to build for the future of the people of New York. You have something to build upon. 3 years of solid accomplishment and sustained progress, rarely matched in our state's history. This fact can be a source of pride to all who have contributed to it. But it should also be something more. It should be a challenge to us to match and even to surpass all achievements to this hour. For all of us in this government have a basic mandate from the people. It commands us to prove in our every word and act and decision that free men know how to govern themselves with wisdom and courage and vision. These are the basic ingredients of leadership. And it is the historic role of this state to do just that, to lead. Change is the dominant characteristic of our time, and change brings uncertainty and fear. But the record of the 3 years past and the hopeful prospects before us lend confidence that we can meet the problems of change by continuing to act not with fear, but with faith in the future of our nation and of our state. During these 3 past years, the policies and joint efforts of my administration and your honorable bodies have been instrumental in achieving the following gains for the people of the state of New York. More than 450,000 new jobs, 1,680 important new and expanded plants, over $5 billion more personal income, with payrolls at record highs, achievement of balanced budgets through restoration of fiscal integrity, strict economy, and efficient management in government, reduced state debt and increased financial reserves. Unemployment rates have been brought significantly below the national average. Higher benefits and extended coverage for unemployment and injured workers. First statewide minimum wage. The last gap in New York's pioneering laws against discrimination, bridged by including private housing and commercial space. A 700% increase in construction of state-financed middle-income housing since 1958. A 75% increase in housing for aged during the same period. Adoption of the nation's most comprehensive program of medical aid for the needy aged. Major strides in rehabilitation and research in heart disease, cancer, and mental health. An increase of $626 million, more than 50%, in total state aid to public schools during the first 3 years of this administration over the last 3 years of the prior administration. Financial assistance to 122,000 college students. A tripling of the number of Regent scholarships to a total of 17,000. A doubling of appropriations for state university construction. Pioneering programs to increase employment for young people and to combat and prevent juvenile delinquency. The best highway safety record in our history. The highest rate of state highway construction in our history, and all on a pay-as-you-go basis. Acceleration of $122 million of needed public works projects in labor surplus areas. The first comprehensive attack on the state's mass transportation problems. Financial aid to commuter railroads serving suburban areas. Leadership among the states in the peaceful use of the atom and in the protection against the dangers of nuclear attack. Important expansion of agricultural research in plant and animal disease control. The first reorganization of our courts in 115 years. The first reorganization of the executive branch of government since Governor Alfred E. Smith. the creation of the Office of Local Government, and comprehensive legislation to facilitate joint action by local governments in meeting emerging regional problems. The $75 million state program for acquiring recreational areas and municipal park lands for the future, and the establishment of the State Council on the Arts, the first such state-sponsored cultural program in the nation. Such a record spurs genuine pride in our joint accomplishments. More importantly, however, let it spur us to quicken our pace and lengthen our stride in meeting the great matters before us. We must expand the broad range of opportunity so importantly affecting the happiness and security of the people of this great state. Job opportunities for all must continue to be our basic goal. We cannot rest until all those who seek the dignity of work can have the satisfaction and security of finding it. Challenges and the opportunities. As we attack the specific problems and the work before us, there are basic principles to guide us. First, it is the proper and historic role of the state in our federal system to be a leader and an innovator. The role of state is not negative as a simple counterweight to federal power. It is positive to provide leadership, inventive and imaginative enough to stir others to follow. In short, the preservation of states' rights critically depends upon the fulfillment of states' responsibilities. Second, to fill this role, a state government must have a working partnership of the legislative and the executive branches of government. Only a true partnership of these branches of government, each strong in its separate and distinct responsibilities, can produce the leadership and results that the people of this state expect and demand. In these 3 years, we have had this spirit of partnership. To its continuation, I pledge myself. Third, as we meet all issues confronting us in the next months, there should be one rule and decisive criteria: the common weal of the people of this state. We should not be misled by labels, for example. Whether a given piece of legislation carries for some people the label of liberal or conservative. Our only concern must be, does it truly serve the general welfare? Similarly, vital economic decisions must not be made in the false terms of choosing between so-called pro-labor and pro-business programs. The implied conflict is grossly misleading. All progress for all sections of our state depends upon the interrelated factors of economic growth. Labor depends upon the jobs that only a prosperous business can provide. Business depends upon a responsible and prospering labor force. Both depend on the productive genius of agriculture. And all the social services of the government depend for their financing upon the revenues attainable only through general economic progress and growth. This is the dynamic circle of progress for our free society. It must not be broken by false issues or imaginary conflicts. It must be forged by leadership that looks to the general good of all the people. In this spirit, let us now look at the specific matters before us. The task then is to continue and to further accelerate this growth rate, and at the same time to assist the individual worker and the individual business caught up in the problems of change. We must cushion the shock of transition while encouraging rather than restricting the increased efficiency and economic growth that alone will support a rising standard of living and keep America competitive in the world. Only in this way can we remain strong, and expansions have been or are now being added in New York's industrial complex. Business and industry have already invested more than $6 billion in these new and expanding plants since I took office on January 1, 1959. Our agricultural economy has hit an all-time high in efficiency, with its output approaching the billion-dollar level. Tourism in New York State has grown to a $2.6 billion enterprise, a 30% increase in the past 3 years. 71 new research and development laboratories have been built in the state in the same 3-year period. bringing the total of our state to 1,078. These laboratories, the wellspring of our future progress, number more than twice the combined total of all of the laboratories in California and Massachusetts, the next ranking states. As a result of this concentration of our efforts, New York's index of business activity during the past 3 years has hit one new high after another. Per capita income in the state has risen by 9%. Despite these highly favorable factors, though, we cannot forget that we've recently emerged from a period of national recession with its residue of unemployment. I am deeply concerned by one legacy of the recession that now faces us. This relates to unemployment insurance fund. The recent recession put a heavy burden on the fund, and accordingly I am requesting a thorough review of the financing provisions of the present unemployment insurance law with the idea of making appropriate recommendations to your honorable body. Because of this is a highly complex matter affecting many segments of our society, I do not expect it to be possible to have such recommendations ready until the next session. Continued expansion of job opportunities. The favorable overall situation, however, makes it possible for the state to devote increasing attention and resources to the achievement of full employment. Job Development Authority. New York voters approved the Constitutional Amendment number 4 at the polls last November, and thus set in motion the financing of the New York Job Development Authority. This authority, with borrowing capacity of $100 million, will assist local nonprofit development groups in labor surplus areas to provide new job opportunities by lending a portion of the cost of building and rehabilitating manufacturing plants to business which will locate in those areas. It is possible that with 70% matching funds from other sources, this authority may be able to assist in providing some 70,000 new industrial jobs and 120,000 related service jobs in the state. Legislation creating the authority became effective January 1, and the membership of the authority will be announced in the next few days. Second, expansion of vocational training and retraining. To meet the problem of unemployment resulting from improvements in technology and from loss of business due to gradual obsolescence, our major concern must be the training and retraining to develop new skills for which there are demands. In the next sessions of the message, I outline plans for expansion of training facilities and survey of opportunities, and vocational training for recipients of unemployment insurance. And then I turn to Second Governor's Conference on Automation. 2 years ago, I called the first Governor's Conference on Automation. This meeting in Cooperstown, New York, brought together some of the most able and experienced leaders of labor, industry, education, and government to examine the prospects and the problems resulting from technological change. Thus, New York State took the leadership in facing realistically the problems of technological change. Now I'm appointing a working committee of such leaders to prepare the second Governor's Conference on Automation to be held soon. Will be intensified in the coming years. Highway safety. A vital factor in making New York State a better place to live is the impressive progress which has been made in the past 3 years in our approach to the basic factors involved in accident causation: the driver, the vehicle, and the highway. We are heartened that our record is the best in the state's history, in that motor vehicle deaths have reached a new low in relation to miles traveled. However, we must continue our efforts to meet traffic safety challenges. Therefore, I urge legislation to subject all school bus drivers to chauffeur license requirements, legislation to permit convictions of traffic violations in contiguous states, as well as forfeitures of bail on traffic offenses, to be included within the operation of the point system, and consideration of appropriate standards for legislation to permit a broader program of driver re-examination. Public welfare. In order to maintain public confidence in the objectives and operations of the laws relating to the aid, care, and support of the needy, I appointed a distinguished 11-member Moreland Act Commission last August to make a broad study of public assistance and care within the state. I'm confident that the Commission's report will afford a precise and impartial evaluation of this entire area and provide a basis for legislative recommendations next year. Equal opportunity. The quality of opportunity is an imperative if we are to make New York a good place for all our citizens to live. Over the years, New York State has been a consistent leader in giving practical expression to our national spiritual heritage in the supreme worth of the individual. The State Commission Against Discrimination, since its creation in 1945, has been a great structure for the realization of these ideas. To further this important work, I recommend that the membership of the Commission be expanded from 5 to 7, that the administrative powers of the chairman be strengthened, and that the provision be made for appointment of a vice chairman. That the Commission open additional offices in New York City, one in Upper Manhattan and one in Brooklyn, to facilitate opportunities for citizens to exercise their rights under the law. That the Commission ensure equal opportunity for participation in apprenticeship and other training programs. Next, good government. Good government is the pride of New York. It has been an important factor in making New York a good place to work and to live. Thanks to your honorable bodies, we are undertaking the first reorganization of the courts in 115 years and establishing a statewide unified court system as approved by the voters last November. In addition, you have enacted 45 bills, and the voters last November approved a constitutional amendment further to implement my administration's program for the first reorganization of the executive branch in more than 30 years. I contemplate a series of recommendations to your honorable bodies to further these and other advances, including strengthening law enforcement, the administration of criminal justice, increased judicial manpower, revision of New York's civil procedure, modernization of the constitutional provisions regulating the right to vote, and additional benefits for civil servants. As for good government at the local level, your honorable bodies deserve great credit for encouraging charter revision in New York City and other cities in the state, and for taking decisive action last August to lift the New York City school system with its 1 million children and 40,000 dedicated school teachers, which had fallen out of the confusion and corrupt practices into which it had fallen, and the crisis caused by the reluctance of city leadership to assume its responsibilities and to take the necessary corrective action. And finally, the safety and protection of all the citizens is a vital phase of good government at all levels. In this connection, we can take satisfaction that the National Fallout Shelter Program announced last month parallels our state program with respect to public and family shelters. The federal program will supplement our state program and should help assure the widest participation of schools, colleges, community service groups in the shelter program. And now, in conclusion, may I express my appreciation for this opportunity to review with you these matters before us: opportunities for young and old, public health and urban development, rural well-being and atomic research, fiscal integrity and law enforcement, the administration of justice, and the expansion of job opportunities. All these areas of action will profoundly affect the well-being of the people of New York State for years to come. All of us believe that New York can and should lead by act and example in giving new proof of the creativeness, the vigor, the vision, and the leadership of free government. The full meaning of this challenge reaches far beyond our borders. The world is filled with nations either dedicated to the destruction of freedom or coveting and struggling for the blessings of freedom. It is the supreme task for all Americans in such positions of trust as you and I to do all in our power to refute and deny those predicting the death of freedom, and to assure and hearten those craving the life of freedom. Our purposes, then, must be high, never petty. Our actions must be responsible, never reckless. Our leadership must be never timid nor fearful, but confident, steadfast, and creative. stirred by this awareness, we can, with God's help, do much good work and be truly worthy of the trust we hold. Thank you very much indeed.
Joint session, please be in order for a moment. The members of the Senate, through their presiding officer, desire to express their appreciation to the Speaker and to the members of the Assembly for the hospitality which has been accorded on this occasion. I should like to announce at the request of the Governor that he expects that all of you who can possibly do so, the members of the Senate and Assembly, will be able to join him at the Executive Mansion for a buffet beginning at 3 o'clock, and that automobiles will be available down under the arch beginning at 3 for that purpose. I should like to add my personal thanks to my friends and colleagues of many years in this House, invite them in the name of the Senate to come over there at any time, and now ask the members of the Senate, please, to return to the Senate, declare this joint session of the Senate and Assembly adjourned, and return the gavel to the Speaker of the Assembly, Mr. Carlin.